All right. Hi, everyone. I am back with you today, and I'm kicking off a new series. So, I'm going to talk to you today about behind the scenes and how you can effectively network with recruiters on LinkedIn. So, before we kick it off, I just want to reintroduce myself. I am Andrea. I'm a career coach for recent grads and young professionals, and I help them launch and land fulfilling careers in 90 days. And I am here with my business bestie and about one of my great friends, Jess Smith, and she is now career coach and former recruiter. And I'm going to have her give us a few behind the scenes tips about how you can effectively network with recruiters. So, Jess, I'll let you do a more in-depth introduction, and then we'll jump into a couple of questions.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Andrea. So excited to be here with you. Andrea and I talk like nonstop all the time. Really fun. We get to like like this together. So thanks for having me.
Thank
Um,
you.
I'm Jess. Like Andrea said, I am a career clarity coach and job search expert, and I help people who are unhappy with their jobs to find careers that they love by connecting with their inner power. So I've been doing this work for 2 years now, and prior to getting into career coaching, I actually spent 4 years on in-house recruiting teams at a Fortune 500 tech company, Salesforce, which is located in the Bay Area.
Nice, thank you. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. And like Jess said, we talk all day on voice text and text messages. Um, and I just wanted to, again, have her give you a peek behind the curtain. I feel like recruitment is such a mysterious thing to all of us. And I was an HR business partner for a number of years. And I worked very closely with my recruitment team, but admittedly, I'm not an expert in all things recruitment. So we'll kick it off by starting with, I guess the question I get all of the time is, we talk about networking and networking effectively on LinkedIn. And I wanted to ask you, when people are doing that, how can they do that and maybe befriend a recruiter and really authentically build that relationship without it coming off as salesy or anything like that? So let's start with that question.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think that networking is about connecting with people, right? You have to remember that there is another human on the other end of your message, right? And so I think a lot of times people are reaching out and they're saying like, hey recruiter, I was so excited to find you on LinkedIn. I'm really interested in this job at your company. Here's my resume. And that's like the first message that they send, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which sometimes that can work. If you are a perfect fit on paper and that recruiter needs candidates for that role, it can work, right? So I'm not saying that it can't. However, if you're not a perfect fit on paper, right, or maybe that recruiter has an abundance of candidates already,
Mm-hmm.
right? I worked at Salesforce, we would get hundreds of applicants to all of the roles that we would post. When that is the case, just saying like, hey, I want this job, here's my resume, is not necessarily a great strategy. You're also kind of making the recruiter do a lot of the work, right? Of sifting through
Yeah.
the resume and trying to figure out like, who is this person, right? What's happening here? So I think a better way that felt more favorable to me when I was in recruiting is taking a little bit more of a human personalized approach. So for me in particular, I loved working at Salesforce. I loved the culture. I loved the people. We had a really cool product, right? And
Yeah.
I was really proud to be working there. I loved it. And so when people would reach out to me and instead of saying, hey, Jess, I want this job, can you get this
Mm,
thing for me, right?
sure.
When people would reach out to me and say, oh my God, you're working at Salesforce. Is it really as good as all the articles say that it is, right? I mean, they were ranked for stuff, so not to be like snobby, but like, are all these things true? Like, is there actually a really great culture there? How have you liked it there? What has been your experience working there? That was so much more inviting for me to want to open up a conversation with this person, right? Because I love talking about Salesforce. I love talking about my experience and the people and all the cool stuff that we did at my company. And so that made me much more receptive to people's messages. And then once I got on the phone with them,
Mhm.
and we have this conversation, they've now built up some rapport with me. I've gotten to hear their voice, have some interactions with them. At this point, would feel so much more open to hearing about what types of jobs they were interested in, right? I was
Got it.
enrolled in the idea of helping them find something that they wanted, right? And if we made that really great connection on the phone, I was even excited to help them, right? Like
Sure.
yeah, there were totally people who I was like, yes, let me do everything that I can to help you find a job. Like I would go talk to other recruiters for teams that they were interested in, right? So when you can build a more genuine relationship, that recruiter can become an advocate for you, is my point here.
Got it. So so much I know we could probably do like an hour-long conversation on this. So this goes back to a lot of like the principles of networking or core elements that I share a lot here on LinkedIn. And I recently shared the 3C method, and one of the C's is compliment. So while you didn't say directly compliment me, when I'm here, where we can take that C is authentically connecting, to your point. So getting really curious and excited about your work and your experience when you were working at Salesforce. So to your point, sending that message and saying, hey, I read all these articles about Salesforce, and take it a step further, point out a specific thing that excites you about the company, right? So if you wrote about the culture, ask Jess what her experience was about the culture and if that really is true. So I love that you're saying that, because again, that's the basis of networking, to build that relationship, build the value first before you ask for something.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thinking back then, was there a candidate when you were working in that job at Salesforce that did that well, that you remember, obviously without sharing who they are, maybe how they reached out to you and what they said, just to give people a little bit of a more concrete example?
Yeah, yeah. So there was someone actually who reached out to me who went to my university that I graduated from. It was like a mid-sized university in Wisconsin that like people don't really know about. And so it was really fun for me to get that message and to hear that
Ah,
the person who had the same experience as me was now interested in the company that I'm at, right? And so we were in conversation and in connection with each other. He wanted an internship at the time at Salesforce.
okay.
And so what had happened was that he got rejected. And, we had been in conversation. I was like, well, let me go find out like what's happening. Right. So I am friends with all the recruiters, obviously. Right?
Right.
Recruiters are all friends, right? We all sit on,
Yeah.
remotely are on the same teams. So I just walked over and talked to my girlfriend who recruited for that particular internship and asked her, like, why did this guy get rejected? Like, I'm talking to him, he's great, I'm really curious what happened. And what it came down to was a location factor. He was actually not in the location that the internship was happening. And so
Mm,
there was a disconnect between he was willing to move, but again, at big companies, it's like she already had however many candidates that were already in the correct location. So me as the recruiter on the back end could make that connection and say, no, no, he's actually willing to move. And she said, okay, great, I'll talk to him. He went through the process and got the internship,
oh
right?
my gosh.
So like that is really the power of networking and creating advocates inside of companies. And the way that he did that was through our university connection and then also mutual interest in the company that I was at. So he didn't say, hey, Jess, can you get me this internship? It was more
Right.
like, I have interest in this and we have commonalities, right? And that worked really well.
Yeah. Love that. And that's also my first C in the 3C method, which is circle. Right? You already have a built-in network of people that we sometimes forget about. And, if you're a recent grad or a young professional and you're only a couple years out of school, your alumni network is probably one of your biggest resources that you can tap, because most likely there's people spread out across the world, potentially, depending on your school and where they went. And right there, like what Jess said, that brought back happy, nostalgic memories for her, right? So she was reliving her college experience when this candidate reached out to her. So right there, that created a personal connection, and it warmed you up to the conversation. So I love that. And I want to remind people, I think we often forget, like you're saying, like you started in the beginning by saying there's another person on the other side of that receiving message, right? And they can be just as intimidated to respond to you, right? So, as much as might be their job to communicate with others, they're busy, they have a day. Not every message seems inviting, and it can be some pressure on their end as well, just as much as it's intimidating or pressure on your end as the candidate reaching out. So, I wanted to touch on that and just remind people again of the humanity on the other, on both sides of the message.
Yeah.
So then I want to jump to a question in terms of standing out. Video messages are becoming more and more popular. So I'm curious, I don't know if you received those when you were in recruitment or have recently, and what your thoughts are on how people can do that effectively.
Yeah, so I feel like you said this is kind of a newer trend, at least
Hmm.
in my perception. When I was working in the recruiting world, I had never received a video message. That was, 2 years since I've been out of that world. So back then, hadn't received any. And actually, the first video message that I ever got um, post leaving the recruitment world was actually from a fellow entrepreneur, Dan Irvin. He had sent me a video message over LinkedIn, and I was
Okay.
so enchanted by that. So it was so great. And what was great about it was that I got a little clip of what Dan is really like. Dan
Mm.
has this really like chill, nice energy that I really relate to. And we've had such great connection since then. So it was a great way for me to get more of a sense of his vibe than just, a text copy written message. So I think that was really, really cool.
I love that. And that makes sense because we all, again, we connect with certain people. And when someone doesn't know you, that's an extra step of being personal and can really showcase who you are, which is fantastic. And I'm curious then, was that the first message he sent you, or like was that a few messages down the road? Because I'm curious too, again, we're talking about networking and building that relationship. I'm curious if that would be okay to send as a first message or down the road. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because I wanted to talk about this too. So this is a first message that he had sent to me. I think that video messages are appropriate for a first message. I think that it's really intriguing, right? Where I was like, "What's this video?" And he had a whiteboard that said, "Hey Jess" on it. So
Oh, how fun.
I knew like from the image that it was personalized. It wasn't like some canned thing, right? So that was pretty cool. I love that. So I think first messages it's great for. I think video messages could be great as thank yous after
Yep.
interviews. One place that I would not use a video message is like the scheduling logistics with a recruiter. Um,
Yep.
that I would prefer for people to keep more short and sweet. Like I want to be able to see the schedule, right? Read it. We're moving fast, right? So
Yeah.
there are appropriate times to use video messages and other times where it's probably not the best idea. So I would say networking intros and thank you messages are probably great times to be using video.
Love that. And I would completely agree because I always preach with networking, help them help you, right? So to Jess's point, if you send the video as a logistics coordination piece and trying to get a call, that's going to probably feel tedious to that person on the receiving end. They have to click play and read through it. But to your point, as an introduction or a thank you, that's really adding a wow factor there. This just came to mind. I have a lot of clients that are interested in and or already working in social media or digital marketing. I mean, that would be a great way to really showcase your creativity and who you are as a candidate and what you could do and your skills. I mean, if you're creating a pretty fantastic 30-second introduction video, that right there can speak a lot of to what you can do as a candidate. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my
oh,
just like super quick BOMB, bomb
uh-huh.
is a great tool to use for sending videos.
I have never heard of that.
Oh my gosh, you haven't? It's so good because they make it really easy and you can record the video and it like compiles all of it into like a moving image and all you have to do is copy the link. It's really, really great. It makes the whole process so much easier than like video editing. I wouldn't even know how to like do that too.
There you go. Pro tip. See, Jess and I are besties. We talk all the time, but I just learned something. So there, you never know what you can learn. Um, awesome. I'll have to put that in the description. And then one last thing, we're talking about what they can do to stand out, how to network effectively with a recruiter, what would be one don't or something people should avoid when reaching out to a recruiter and really trying to build that authentic relationship?
Yeah, I would say probably what I mentioned earlier is just reaching out and saying like, "Hey, I want this job. Hey, here's my resume. Hey, let me know if you have anything." It's like, what do you want? Like I have so many things. Recruiters work on so many roles at one time that like the only scenario that would work in is if you are an absolute fit on paper, right? And even then, that's like if they give you the time, right? To like, if they take the time to go and dig through all your stuff, right? But I would say, yeah, that's probably one thing to avoid is just like putting all of the work on them, being really like flippant about it, and short. You need to be clear on what you want, is basically what I'm saying. And it also, even before being clear on what you want, you have to create that connection and build rapport first.
Well, I'm going to end it there. I would have said the same thing. And we always say that Jess and I are both clarity coaches as well. So clarity is definitely key along with the connection. So Jess, this was so fun. Thank you for the time and the like behind the scenes peek into recruiter world. And I'd love to do this again. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. It was so fun.